It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Hey, today I have Dave Sobel, and Dave Sobel is an MSP thought leader in the space for a long time, had an MSP, ran an MSP, worked for various vendors in the space. And my friends in the imaging channel, my goal for 2021 is to introduce you to some folks so you can learn new things, look in new places, and try as hard as you can to pivot into IT. Dave, it's so great to have you on. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Ray. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, Dave, you got two podcasts out there. You're the host of Business of Tech, and you're also the co-host of Killing IT. I think you're doing really well with your podcast. I've listened to them. Great. You got great insight, great guests. But, Dave, let me ask you a question. When you were with SolarWinds at one point in time, I want to let you give a little bit of your background, but as you observed the print channel, and I know that you spent some time trying to move some products through that space, what could you say to that channel today, more than ever, that they need to be in this space?
Yeah, so to give a quick perspective of where I come from, so I was on MSP. I was on MSP for a decade, and when I sold that business, I said, hey, I want to learn more about the delivery of IT services, and the way I wanted to do it was I jumped over and I worked with two different vendors. I was with a company called Level Platforms, selling remote monitoring and management, and then I went to GFI, which became Logic Now, and eventually acquired by SolarWinds. I had a 6-year run there. So I've been a vendor and I've been an MSP. And you're exactly right. I spent some time, particularly in that sort of 2011 through 2013 time, really trying to bring our technology products into that print channel. And from my perspective, it was not a success. we spent a lot of time and effort on that. And for whatever reason, there was a disconnect between our conversation about managing proactively IP-enabled devices versus what the print channel was looking for. And that disconnect, from my perspective, is what we backed off on investing there. I'm glad to see there's interest now, because for me, I look at what's happening and say everything's an IP-enabled device. If you're not thinking about this from the perspective of I've got to monitor and manage everything that's IP enabled, I think you're missing the boat.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on at the end of the day with Ray today, because I think our friends, they've been listening pretty much to the same consultants for a long time. And, Dave, I think what's happened, quite honestly, is a lot of the vendors and the software providers that want to get into that channel, they end up their good intentions are hijacked by the channel. In other words, they see this channel and they see the huge potential. They see bigger potential than the channel itself. They get all excited about it, and then they try to appease the channel. They try to appease the channel with language that makes them feel good. They try to get their products to go through distribution in the way that the channel wants them to go through it, not the way they're supposed to go through it, and it just totally screws up the whole process. And that's why I'm hoping that as my friends can listen to different people and different players in the space and hear some other success stories, that maybe they can change their thinking a little bit. But
yeah, it's my perception, and Ray, you're gonna help. This is where we talk it out. It's my perception that, like portions of the IT channel, the print channel relies heavily on sort of brand recognition of vendors and selling SKUs. And from an IT perspective, from my way of thinking of that is all like dead and long gone way of thinking about things. I'm much more interested, from my perspective as an analyst, as the kind of business that I want to engage with, in understanding my customer's business pain and selling them solutions to solve that pain. I don't really care the underlying brands in most cases. I just worry about, has my business been enhanced by the engagement that I'm doing? And that's the lens I always look at it. And that's where the problem becomes really easy, right? I don't care if it's IT or print or AV or whatever channel you might be in. If you're not solving my business problem, I don't really care about you.
And it's really bad when your business problem that you solved for years is not really a problem anymore, i.e. print. Or it's, the need of it is depleting so much. But, those are great points. And, our channel, the imaging channel, for the most part, always sold a product. They were really focused on the brand for the most part. And then they provided service on that product. And I don't think they can quite comprehend that they can actually get service revenue without a product.
Right.
And that's to me, and that's where all their money is. For the history of that channel, their money is really in the service they provide. It's not in the damn product. It's in the service that they provide, but they could never make that transition.
I'll say the ugly thing, right? Because it's true in IT and it's true in print. The brand doesn't matter. They're all fine. like, as a general rule, if you buy any name brand device in IT or in print, you're fine. They all work. They create paper with ink on it.
Yep.
Like it isn't that hard of a problem anymore. It was, and I'm sure I've got a ton of people really angry at me now saying like, well, mine's way better in this one thing or what? Who cares?
Yeah, there's a few of those, but not many.
Right. Who cares? In the end, the business owner doesn't care about the print. What they care about is what is that technology letting me sell more of, reduce my cost, like do more from a P&L perspective of the end customer. And don't get into this whole bit of like, oh, I'm going to save you a couple of bucks on toner. Like, yeah, like not sure, but that's not what I really mean. That's not impactful change to my cost of delivering business. What I mean is are you going to actually make my people cost me less or my technology cost me less in their ability to do more selling? Like, can I move more product? Can I enhance my membership? Can I offer more services? Can I add new line? That's what I care about as the end customer.
And that's why they need these other services, and they need to understand the cloud applications, because that's really where most of these images are going. I mean, I always say the biggest interruption to workflow is to have to stop and scan it or print it.
Oh yeah.
So you can't build your whole model around that, that's for sure, you know. So
right, and most technologists, guys like me, will say get rid of all that stuff, right? Like if I can keep it all electronic all the time, it's generally better anyway. And I can make sure that everything's searchable and findable. And like, why do I need this physical thing? It's actually a bit of a problem to have it that way, because then the information is stuck in that physical form, not in a way that I can leverage the new technologies. Particularly if we're looking forward to machine learning and artificial intelligence, like anything that isn't electronic is a detriment to my business and leveraging those technologies.
Well, Dave, let me ask you a question. You're in the imaging channel, you're a dealer, you're really focused on IT. Let's just assume that's what they're going to do in 2021. I'm hoping so. They can't really look in the publications for the industry. I mean, we got two main publications in our industry that basically are, I call them the feel-good, publications. They'll tell the dealers what they want to do. They'll give the awards out, all those things. But, where do these dealers go for resources? And I'm going to attach, links to obviously you. I wanted to start watching your podcast and paying attention to you.
Well, of course, you always got to start with my stuff.
Yeah, there you go. But, I want to really they got to look in new places. So can you give us some suggestions on, where they should really be putting some of their energies and time? They don't need to be worrying about what Rico says about the new, A3 model they kicked off. They need to take that reading time and read something else. Where should they go for that stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, from my, particularly if you're looking at the IT space and you want to understand that, I think you've got a first lens of find the media organizations that are actually looking at this to understand what are the business problems, how we're trying to solve it. Don't get me wrong, like, I'm with you on like there's media organizations on the IT side that are doing that kind of fluffy vendor kind of stuff, case kind of study stuff, and that's useful at some level, right? I want to understand what other people are doing.
Sure.
That's helpful. But I also need to know that that's not necessarily going to paint the picture of the challenges, right? So for that, you're looking for ways of engaging to understand other business challenges. What I focus on is what my content focuses on. But then you've also, in the IT side, I would encourage people to be looking at some of the communities that are focused on this. So for example, my co-host on Killing It, Carl Polachuk, runs a community. He's got a ton of great material on how to build an IT business, how to be in IT, how to deliver IT services. He does that kind of stuff. There's other people, I know you've talked to people like Gary Pica that are focused on business growth. You take each of these pieces and you're getting different insights. For example, my expertise is surveying the market space and understanding where opportunity is. Like which technologies are interesting, which are not, which trends are important, which are not. You combine that with people like Carl and Gary that are about business building. You combine that with marketing expertise to understand the messaging. You pull those sources together, and that's where I think you get the true value.
Well, I think so, because, a lot of times they get focused on someone that's trying to do business through them. Right. So that's their voice to the channel. But, I had a fellow on one time, Greg Kaplan, and we were talking about solution selling. And, these solution providers or these software providers, they don't really give a crap if a dealer's successful. Because if 1,000 dealers are unsuccessful, they still sold 1,000 applications. And I think
Right.
you know the IT community, the MSPs need to think about that, same as the imaging channel for sure. I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, like this is one of those things where you know, again, it's important to understand how everybody does business. It isn't a judgment call of it's good or bad. It's understanding how they make money.
Yep.
Most of the large vendors, you know, particularly ones that I've spent my time working on, you're right. They care about solution providers, but they care about it in aggregate, right? Because if you think about it, if you've got 1,000 solution providers, IT companies, print channels, if everybody sold just one more deal, well, that's 1,000 new deals.
Sure.
That's not ultimately how it works. So what I'm trying to do is, as a vendor, is I'm trying to deploy my resources to try and encourage as many as possible to sell more. That doesn't mean that, but because I'm doing it at scale, I don't have to worry about every single one of you. I just have to worry about it in aggregate. Again, not a judgment. It's how we have to understand the way they do business. So they're going to have systemized programs that are encouraging people to work in a systemized way that may or may not work for an individual provider. And they're going to want you to fit in their methodology because that's what works best for them. If you're in alignment, that's great. You may not be. And remember, they might change too.
Yeah, or get bought. There could be some dynamics.
Right,
with that.
exactly. And especially the buying situation, that's one where I always observe never panic initially. Everybody always freaks out the day of a buy. It's like nothing changed on day one of the acquisition. In fact, the likelihood of it changing immediately is as close to zero as I can think of, because most of the time the acquirer doesn't actually want to damage the thing they've just bought.
Yep.
Most of the time they're actually still figuring out what it is exactly that they just bought. You worry 6 months, 12 months down the line, and you watch them. But I would say it's very much not the time to make a change right in an acquisition because you don't actually know what you're getting yourself into.
Then those can be emotional decisions, which obviously those aren't good decisions to make.
Last time I checked, my emotions are not what actually pays.
Yeah, you're right about that. So here's a question for you. So you've been in the MSP space for a long time. You had your MSP over 10 years ago. You know, as a lot of folks that I talk to, especially from the imaging channel, you know, they're still looking at IT services from an MSP delivery point to the end user the way it was 10 years ago. And it's just, it's almost scary to a degree. So let me ask you a question. You know, let's just say, Dave, you know what? I want to start an MSP with you, Dave. What would we do? How would we come to market? What would be our game plan today?
So, and it's funny because I've actually done a video, so I will take a moment and say, like, go to my YouTube channel. I'm putting out content about this. But just to give you a quick insight on that, for me, if I was starting an MSP today, the way I recommend you go is you're going to start with the business problem. What can I do better and help a particular kind of customer do something more? I walk through my example in the video. For example, I'm here in the DC metro area. There are two kinds of businesses here as a really heavy hitters. There's a lot of government agencies. Well, I don't want to do Fed. There's consultancy like technology that serves the Fed. That I don't want to do. Well, what there's also here is a lot of associations and not-for-profits. Those, you hear about the lobbying groups, well, they're on both sides, and they all have money, and they all have technology needs. So I think about associations, and I say, what's the problem I'm going to solve? I'm going to help them drive more membership, or I'm going to help them drive more recruiting, or whatever it is that piece is, and then I'm going to look at the technologies that help do that. You'll note none of this has anything to do with somebody's brand or what vendor I'm selling. It's about identifying that problem. Every good solution provider, and I mean that in the broad sense, you're trying to deliver some kind of technology-based solutions, be it IT or print or AV or whatever. You think about yourself that way. Figure out who your customer is and what the particular pain point you can differentiate that ties to their business. My favorite, more revenue. If you can help them generate more revenue, that's the best. Cost cutting is second because it's not as good. So you want to focus on that first bit and find out what technology can I leverage that does that thing and helps those customers be better. And then I assemble my solutions. And remember, when I say solutions, the hard part is your brain power to figure out how to use the technology. Tech is all fine. It's how you put it together, connect it all. That's what's really valuable.
Well, that was some great insight, and I think we all forgot that. It's this, Steve Jobs said it best: go to the customer, find the problem, and bring them a better solution to that problem. Take
Right.
away a great relationship by delivering a better experience. So, we're definitely speaking the same language there. Dave, hey, it was great having you on. I want to just do a brief introduction to the channel, and I'm going to have you on again. I enjoyed talking with you. We know that 2021 will have some challenges this first quarter, but hopefully by the time we get into the springtime and fall and the winter of 2021, we can come back to some normalcy, but we do have to create that new normalcy, as I say. But,
So, thanks for that, and I appreciate being on. I'm giving this advice to everyone: is be pessimistic and careful about your piece on this. And the reason is not because I think things are down, or not because I want things to go badly. Because my mission, and when I say that every single time, is I want everybody to have their business survive through this time. And if you're careful and deliberate and you plan, it's going to be a lot longer than you hope it is. The good news is I hope everyone tells me in a few months that I was completely wrong. But I know that if I'm right, I help a lot of people do really well and survive, because you can't thrive if you don't do the first bit, which is survive. So be careful. Know that the next few months, or maybe longer, may be harder than we want it to be. Plan for that, because if it does better, hey, you're sitting pretty.
well, that's great advice, and I did a video a while back talking about the false optimism, where people preach a bunch of optimism, make people feel good. It goes back to that conversation: are you listening to things to make you feel good, or are you listening to things to make you better? And a lot of times those things you listen to make you better are painful discussions. It was great having you on, Dave. I look forward to having you on again, because we all know this: status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.